Hello, and welcome to another dungeon guide for Discipline Priests. Today I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks that I wish I knew sooner when I started pushing keys. Today we're talking through Shrine of the Storm, and the affixes this week are Tyrannical, Bursting, Necrotic, and Awakened. I will be talking about some abilities and toolkits specific to Discipline Priests, but there will be good advice in here for any healer trying to time this key. And if you're looking for specifically bursting advice, I have linked a short bursting guide in the description below. So if all you care about here is how to heal bursting as a Discipline Priest, I think that advice will be a much more concise guide for you. So here with this first pull, if it is a bursting week, be aware of how many adds are pulled. All of them will burst. And so if your tank does a double pull there, like our tank did here, you're likely to get somewhere between 12 and 15 stacks of bursting. So just be aware and pay attention to the adds health so you can use your cooldowns at a good time so that they will be up for all of the bursting stacks. So there we needed to use Darkness, Barrier, and Rapture, all three, to survive that. And since it was also necrotic, I used the Vitality Conduit Major to help pop the tank up during bursting, even though they were pretty high on necrotic stacks. And they, of course, also used their cooldown, and because of those combined steps, the tank was able to survive. So with this trash here, you can see these both have a pretty significant heal that they cast. The heal will leave a hot on the adds, even if it is kicked, but the hot is significantly greater if the kick does not happen. So if the heal cast goes off. You can see me there dispelling the blue-looking debuff with the white square around it. The white square around it means that it is dispellable, so it's good to pay attention to that square. And pretty much in this dungeon, anything that is dispellable should be dispelled. And it's especially useful with that heal there. It's pretty common for the group to miss a kick or two on either the heal or the damage reduction that is in this group here. And missing either of those will significantly slow the run, and unless it is dispelled very quickly. I mean, even if it is dispelled, it will slow the run a bit, but by dispelling it quickly, you save the group a ton of time. I noticed a really huge difference when I started paying attention to that and dispelling it. So you see me here, I have my mouse over on the add that is casting the heal, and I immediately dispelled it. Be aware that the heal will go on at least some of the other adds, so you can do maybe a mass dispel there or save a blood elf racial over there, just to more quickly get that off. And here you could see that was a missed kick on a damage reduction. That's showing up in that adds health there. I didn't use it because I raptured. I think people may have stood in the root or something, or maybe it was just bursting. I'm not sure exactly why I raptured there. But if people do get hit by that root, it also will hurt quite a lot, especially on fortified weeks. So you may need to use a pain suppression on that. And dispelling off that damage reduction really increases your group's damage and helps speed up the run a lot. So you see me here. I pulled those two other adds before the pull had finished so that they would have time to run over to our tank. And then I just used Fade to help the tank more quickly get aggro. As soon as they got aggro, I ran out and started the role play. Our group's damage was pretty high, so the adds were dead before the roleplay finished. It is safe to do those adds on this boss as long as people are dodging things. There's not a ton of damage in the first phase of this boss, and those adds don't hurt all that much, so it is pretty safe to do them together. You don't need a ton of mana for this boss either, so it's pretty safe to also pull, like have the tank pull pretty quickly. So you see on Surging Rush, almost every time, run to the top of the stairs. That's because I'm not very good at predicting exactly which way Surging Rush will go, and there is no pathing that this ad will ever take that will be within a few yards of the top of the stairs. Now they can hit the very top of the stairs, so you can't just go to the top, kind of like where that guy was standing, and assume you'll be safe. You won't be safe every time there. He can run to the top of the stairs. But if you're a few yards back, you'll be fine. The other bit of advice I have is that if you're not able to get all the way to the top of the stairs, it is much safer for you to try to find the best spot you can with your back to the stairs. Surging Rush has a pretty big knockback component, and you are completely unresurrectable, even with the actual B-res, if you fall all the way off. So by putting your back to these stairs here, you will be knocked back, but not so far back that you are not resable. Like, people will be able to reach you with an engineering res or a regular res. So it's much safer to make sure that you, at all times, if possible, if you think you're gonna miss one of those, is like, just make sure you'll be standing in a place where you can be resurrected. So with these three here, it's really important to have someone within melee range of these at all times. That's why you see me running off of the stairs and onto the other ad there. Even though, like, my safe spot for Surging Rush is pretty far back. I ended up speed potting there, actually, to get all the way to the stairs. I had a corruption slow, and that made it really difficult for me to get all the way to the stairs where I needed to be. So this route here, I'd already used my fear to remove the root from someone else. But the priest fear will work much like it does on Temple of Sethralus. So by fearing that root, whatever it is that's rooting you, you'll be able to clear the root more quickly than you could if you rely on DPS. But of course I was in melee range there of all of our melee players, so they were able to really quickly break me out of it. The fear, or the root, it can get a little bit dangerous here. If you end up with, like, Surging Rush overlapping with it and can't break people out in time before Surging Rush goes off. So this here, these small ads by the wind collar here will burst, and we had kind of a slightly unfortunate overlap of bursting with that AoE there. That's why you saw me use Rapture there. I saw that 4 stacks of bursting were happening, and it was looking like it would overlap with her big AoE, so I just Raptured to be safe. The 2 concurrent damages is pretty high, especially if it's fortified. Also, they will bolster her, so if it's a bolstering affix and fortified, then you'll need a cooldown for every single one of these, and you may have to, like, you know, Rapture the first, Barrier the second, and use Shadow Fiend and Personals on the third or something, and hope she's dead by then. So here, with these ads, you see the bigger ones, they'll cast something that puts a big orange circle on the ground. So any fear, any stun, I probably disorient as well, will work. Knock also works. So you see me fear the first, knock the second, and by doing that you saw our melee ran back out of the circle. They were able to return to DPS more quickly because those were kicked. So you can kind of help your group out for especially melee DPS. Helps kill these a lot faster if they don't have to keep running out and in. One note of caution there, I've killed myself a lot trying to practice this. So the range on fear and knock are smaller than you think, probably. At least they're pretty consistently smaller than I think. So I have to either be standing really close to them by the time the cast starts, so that I will be able to fear it, or I have to be, like, commit to not fearing it. But when I end up further away and, like, trying to game it, like, thinking I have time, like, I will very often end up not having time to get all the way in, and, like, you see right there, I tried to run in, got hit by it, got knocked. Fortunately, it didn't kill me. Or you could end up, like, trying to pop it too soon, and not being able to get the fear off, and then potentially also getting hit, not able to get out in time. So you have to kind of commit to one or the other and be kind of aware, like, position ahead of time. So the positioning on that pole was a little weird for me because the stairs line you. So you saw me kind of bobbing up and down the stairs to move in, get within melee range of all the stuff, and put out hots on all of our melee, or not hots, atonements on all of our melee players. And then move out to do some more DPS on any ads that I can see from the ground, because it wasn't safe to stay right there. And I ended up spawning a circle on melee, which is not ideal. Like, it spawns on ranged, and it just so happened that, like, I was in melee, so it spawned on melee. So here I waited because I was completely out of mana. I've never been able to game that such that if I go in early on that obelisk, to be able to get all the way through all of the growths and not get hit by the circle that obelisk does. So I just kind of committed to the wait, which ended up working out here, but potentially it could end up not working out very well. The growths can hurt your team, and they may range you and still be taking that damage if you commit to the wait like I did. But it worked out fine for us. So here is some more bursting stacks. The tank did a really good job of playing around disc. So you can see the ads, he pulled these into higher health groups so that I could still atone when the bursting went out. So that helped me out a ton. I think I may have been able to get away without using a personal or like a rapture here, but rapture is kind of nice because I have to move around a lot with these higher health ads, so I wouldn't have to drop Shadow Men casts, or I could potentially be forced to move and drop Shadow Men casts if I had not used rapture there. So then for these two packs, these last few packs here, I did not have any. Like, I didn't have Rapture up, and I didn't have anything to atone, so I dropped Barrier here, and that works out pretty well for us. We do still have one death. I'm not even bothering dotting these guys, because potentially if we ended up, like, rolling stacks, the dot could end up, like, ticking the ads over, even if they're running away. Fortunately, we had good crowd control there, so we didn't end up with these guys running away and then like ticking it in late refreshes. That gets really difficult to heal, especially for disc. And then here for this second double pack, I pop Rapture early so that I can get bubbles out on everyone. And I do dot these because people are not topped. So I dot to help top people while using Rapture to help get people up. But you see there, like, Rapture timed out, and I wasn't able to get the cast off. It said, like, cannot do that on that target. But I assumed that what it had said is cannot see that target. So that's why you see me jumping into the water to see the tank, even though I could have seen the tank outside of the water. I just didn't read the warning message and wasn't paying attention to the Rapture cooldown there. So we probably would have been fine there if I hadn't done that. We also, you know, may have been fine if we were a little bit better about coordinating when to use personals, and when I did or did not have something available. But we weren't in Discord. This was just a typical pug group, no Discord, so not a ton of coordination going on. But still, like, the group worked together pretty well for kicks. They may have been in Discord together, but I was not in Discord with them. So here I made a kind of a mistake on positioning. The tank is holding the boss really close to the ledge. He's actually using a very challenging but very, very useful tanking strategy of keeping the ads so close to the ledge that they are never outside of melee range. It takes a lot of time and practice to get this down. And then by moving them back and forth across there, your melee can stay down and not need to worry about dodging the tornadoes. Or dodging the cleave, actually, if the tank is positioning the cleave correctly. But I kind of made it very difficult for him to, like, place that cleave well, because I was down as well. So he may have ended up backing it up more than he ordinarily would have, because I was making it difficult for him to turn and face the cleave to me. And with tornadoes still spawning, that could have been, like, brought about by my bad positioning there. But either way, he fell. I tried to leap him back up, but I couldn't see him, and then I kept inching closer to the edge, and like, just couldn't make it in time. Like, I fell in before I could see him, and then, like, leap wasn't a very useful tool when I was also down. So we wiped, but we still had plenty of time left on the timer. The group's damage was pretty well, so that made it a pretty forgiving run for us. So here this next time, I do end up jumping up on the ledge. I'm so used to not, because I have a hard time jumping up and down, and you do have to jump up and down if you need to clear stacks. Plus, I'm used to tanks like trying to start out there and then giving up, and then if they move across the room from you, not only are they out of range of your heals, but also if the shield spawns over there, then you end up needing to run across the whole room while dodging tornadoes, which is very difficult to do in time, like before the shield, the stack clearing rune, like is gone. So I decided to go ahead and trust and try it out. So I jump up here, and we can still get the speed buff too, very fortunately, from here. Like the speed rune is wide enough that you can usually get in it pretty easily from like using the strategy, but it's the stack clearing rune you see there where like we would have had to jump down, but we didn't have any stacks, so it didn't matter. Another tip for healing this, I really recommend some sort of raid frame that allows you to use or to visualize how many stacks people have on them. This will allow you to use your cooldowns more effectively, and potentially if you're in Discord, you can call specific people, tell them, like remind them that they need to clear their stacks. And around the like 4 to 6 level, like you'll definitely need to clear at the next rune. Even just at 3, I would recommend if you're getting any stacks, it's safer just to clear. Just clear every time it's available. But here you see like if anyone is not clearing their stacks and you are not in Discord and cannot tell them to, or they waited so long that they couldn't get over, or just so far away that they couldn't get over, you can use Leap of Faith to jump them into the rune. But I would recommend being very careful about doing that to your tank, because the cleave will go wherever the tank is facing, and it's really bad if you leave them onto yourself and then you both get cleaved. You'll probably die from it. Even if you're in the rune, it would probably still hurt quite a lot. But as soon as we got the positioning figured out, this whole fight becomes pretty easy with this strategy. No one's taking any extra stacks from the tornado, because everyone's up on the ledge, and everyone's able to clear in the rune pretty easily. Even if you do have to jump down, often you won't have to jump down. Like with the positioning of that last rune there, you wouldn't have had to jump down to clear in that. So kind of a lucky rune placement. So these next trash packs here are generally pretty boring. Not a ton of mechanics to worry about. Just dodge the stuff on the ground, spread out when your debuff is about to expire. There is a pretty big shield on the itty bitty ads near the first guy, and you can dispel that off using a Blood Elf Racial, Arcane Torrent, or a Mass Dispel, or you can solo dispel them. But you see someone Arcane Torrented them, probably the Demon Hunter. And as soon as the shields go off, those ads die pretty quickly, which allows your group to focus more single target damage and speeds the pull up quite a bit. And that's really the only mechanic here, the only dispel requirement. Really, with Shrine of the Storm, the offensive purge is so extremely useful. So it becomes, I think, much easier with a priest, especially a priest that's like proactive about using that offensive dispel. You get so much more forgiveness for missed kicks. The pulls end up being a lot faster, especially if you're pulling these guys, because the shields get insta-purged off. It just makes the whole run a lot more forgiving, especially because generally Shrine is like a test start to finish of kick coordination, and you get a lot more forgiveness for that by running with a priest. So with this trash pack here, this is the Fear guy. I recommend on bursting weeks using Mass Dispel for whichever fear is going to overlap with bursting stacks. So here that happened to be the first dispel. It will often end up being the second dispel. And then you could do every third dispel after that. So if you do the first, you can do the fourth. If you did the second, you could do the fifth. These guys up here these guys also have a purge, an offensive purge, but honestly, these ones, I have no idea what they do. And I usually just let this go. Like, the debuff is pretty short, so unless you're really on top of it, you're not likely to get the purge off in time. And you may end up like needing to use your globals for something else. I don't think they hurt all that much, but what does hurt here is you see that purple cleave. Like, we got a really brief visual of that on this poll. I think someone stunned the ad, so like to interrupt that. But if anyone is standing in front of that, they will get stunned, and it can be pretty dangerous, even if it's just a DPS. Like, missing additional kicks here can significantly increase the damage your groups takes. So if you have a DPS that's stunned and can't like interrupt something, then it can really suck. But you see here, like, we got several of that drown dots out there, and I used my mass dispel to get both the offensive purge requirement off, or not really requirement, the offensive dispel, and to dispel all the drowns out there. So it's pretty nice if you can overlap that. You get a lot more value out of your mass dispel. It's kind of a long cast, kind of annoying to do sometimes. But if you can get both the offensive dispel and defensive dispels out with it, like I was able to there, then that makes it a really like worth it to cast. Other than that, you can dispel the dots, but if your group is, or the drowned debuff, but if your group is missing, like, is not avoiding that purple cleave very effectively, it may be better to save your dispels just to get the stuns off. I don't think the drowned debuff does that much. I mean, I think you can suffocate if you get it chained on you, but I don't know. I can't say for sure. I haven't really tried it, but yeah, it's way more important to get your tank unstunned if it's your tank. So this next group here, depending on your group's kicks, like this group was doing really well, so we ended up taking almost no damage at all from these guys. But if your group isn't kicking very well, then these will really hurt and can wipe you. So the lash stack, the lash cast, if it's not interrupted, can stack and they focus random people, which can happen to be a ton of stacks on just one person. So I have a weak aura linked in the description below. This will allow you to see who's getting casted on and how many stacks of the cast they have on them. So you can use this weak aura to kind of prioritize like who to rapture bubble if your group needs it. And I also recommend, like, if those hurt, you may need to stack barrier and rapture for the first, and then maybe stack rapture and shadow fiend for the second. And then to have rapture up for both, you'll need to do one, then do the boss, then do the second one. So for this fight, there is a dispel, a random debuff that goes out, often shortly before the mind control here. So I dispelled that right before the mind control went out. On really high tyrannical keys, it hurts so much, you'll need to dispel it very quickly. And so with this strategy that we used here with the mind controls, there are kind of two ways to do it. The first way, which is what we did, is have the mind control person run through all the orbs, dot them up, cleave them up as much as you can. And like it kind of worked out for us. What can make that really unfortunate is, like, if the dot goes out at the same time that the mind controlled person gets broken out, you will not be able to dispel the dots on the mind controlled person on top of the dots on like the random party member. Your dispel will be on cooldown. And so these people phase out of the mind control as soon as their health hits 50%, and they will have dots on them if your group is trying to kill them and your group has dots. This can be really dangerous if you have like a mage that's like combusting and they have this huge ignite dot on your party member. They're coming out with like all these dots, including one Mondo dot, and if you do any PvP, you know ignite can kill you very quickly. So that's why, like, especially depending on your group comp, depending on the keystone level, depending on if it's tyrannical or not, you may have a much better time using the second strategy, which unfortunately isn't shown here. But I have figured out how to do it. I didn't do it on this key. What you kind of have to do, because priests are pretty slow, you have to position yourself pretty close to the water before the mind controls go out. And then get into the water and dip just far enough down that you see you start taking damage. And then you'll want to start coming up at about 60%. You will die if you try to sit the whole duration of the mind control. Because the water, like, you'll have a lot more health when you are the ad of the boss than, like, you normally would. So you have, like, you know, some crazy amount of health, like almost 1 million or something. More than 1 million, probably. And so then you come out at 60% and clear as many orbs as you can. Your group may start cleaving you. You'll kind of have to watch your own health to make sure you don't hit an orb when you're already like pretty close to 50 and have a dot on you. Because you could end up getting phased out and then hitting the orb, which will stun you if you're not the mind control and hurt a lot, and you may have dots on you. So you may die if you do that. But yeah, that's the other strategy. It's still like something I haven't perfected. I still mess it up some. But it is worth practicing if you're trying to push keys at like the 18 and above level. Maybe just like practice it on a lower key or something. Just to get used to, you know, how the water works, where to position, and potentially if you need to clear a lot of orbs, you could go maybe a bit above 60% when you phase out and like speed pot so that you'll have the time to get all the orbs. But taking care of the mind control yourself allows your group to do more damage to the boss, which just kind of increases total damage, makes the fight a little bit faster. Increases total boss damage, I should say. Lets the fight be a little bit faster. So here for this boss, this is kind of the main reason why you would probably run Schism on Shrine. But of course it was bursting and this was a pug, so I felt like I needed Twist of Fate to be able to ensure the survivability of the group. Because there are some really high stacks you can end up getting here. So with this boss, he'll periodically put a dot or a debuff out on the healer. This debuff is stacking, and each stack gives you 10% more damage and 10% less health. It stacks up to 9 times. So if you sit the full duration of the debuff and just like keep it for the whole fight, you'll have about 50k health, 56k health. The whole fight, and be doing 90% more damage. So that does stack with Schism too. So you can do some pretty insane damage running Schism and keeping that debuff. So here, if you're in Discord, you can kind of coordinate with your group, like, hey, let the first kick go through, and then make sure that, like, with the second kick, make sure that it gets interrupted. But you can see, like, they got in trouble with their kicks, so I insta-dispelled as soon as we got out. I, like, looking at the footage again, in retrospect, maybe didn't need to. We had enough kicks for both of these ads. I don't think the kick went off. But we had plenty of time. Better safe than sorry, maybe? I don't know. It's tough to know exactly what you should do when it's a pug. But, like, if both the ads are up, then there is a better chance that your group will miss a kick. And if you have the interrupt tracker, which is a weak aura that I linked below, then you can kind of get a pretty good sense with those 2 bits of information about whether or not you need to dispel. If you do end up needing to risk it, like, even though it seems like kind of a bad idea, just because your timer is so tight and your group needs the damage, then you can kind of Rapture, Pain Suppress, Barrier, use your defensives to increase your chances of surviving that hit. I would definitely always use Rapture if your group is about to miss a debuff. Always. And then you may also need Pain Suppression or Barrier. And unfortunately, you'll only really be able to use Rapture on the first one, most likely. And then maybe the third one if your group gets it. So after that, it's gonna kind of be a little iffy for, like, if your second one, the one without Rapture. If your group is pretty safe on debuffs or on the interrupts for you keeping the debuff, then the other place I might use Rapture to help keep the debuff is in the killing of the ads. So each time one of those ads that the boss spawns dies, it bursts. And that bursting damage is not scaling with your health. So you will take a lot of, or maybe it scales with your health, but your max health instead of like it not including the debuff. Anyway, you can kind of survive it with Rapture. You'll have to like be able to probably get a global of Rapture out every single, like between every death of the ad on a high enough key on Tyrannical. So, I mean, that's another good place to use Rapture. You can also use knockbacks to keep them away from the ad. It phases the away from the boss. It phases the boss a little bit faster if the ads are able to meet the boss. So your knocks, your fears can all be helpful at keeping those ads off and giving your DPS enough time to kill them, or helping your tank get a safe place to kite them. Anything you can do to help your tank position here will be helpful, especially with the longer fights like this one. There's kind of a soft enrage where you just run out of floor space. The other pretty nice thing about the C buff is you can keep it even after the boss dies, as long as you don't drop combat. So what that would mean is when the boss gets low, pulling the ads onto the boss, and then you can keep it for that ad pull. So like, it's not going to be safe if you have all the stacks of the debuff for you to do that as a healer, because like getting just one hit from those will kill you. And so it's gonna be pretty risky for you to pull those, but maybe like a rogue with misdirect could do it, or a rogue with tricks, or a hunter with misdirect could do it pretty easily, or anyone sufficiently tanky to bring them up. If you do that, if you do pull like that, you'll definitely want to be careful with your aggro. Your dots will do so much damage, so you'll probably want to position in such a way that if you do peel ads off of the tank, they'll still be forced to run like through the tank. You'll also probably want to like use Fade during that, and be very careful of Holy Nova. I've more than once killed myself by being so close to the ad that the dot that's supposed to go just on the tank ended up going on me, and just one tick of that is probably enough to nearly kill you, if not actually kill you. So these ads will like put a spit on whoever's close to them and in front. It's kind of like a cleave. Maybe, I don't know too much about it. I just know that I die from it. So if I do use Holy Nova, like make sure you're behind them and far enough away. It's not safe to stand right in the middle. I die doing that. You can also use your leap like I used there to help the tank if they're at high stacks of the dot, but they had enough cooldowns up, they didn't need that leap. I just left them because they were at high stacks. So we ended up slightly short on percentage here. So we went back and did the ads in the room, like right before this. And with those ads, they also have, like they will spawn, those two ads, if they're not kicked during this cast, will spawn a bunch of other ads that have the lash. So that's another place where like if those ads come up, you'll probably need a cooldown, and you'll want a way to see who those casts are going on so you can prioritize them with externals or rapture bubbles to make sure that they have enough health to survive it. But fortunately, our group was really good at kicks. That's always a very good thing in Shrine, and is what helped this run go so smoothly, and what helped us time it. So they kicked the cast before the ads could spawn. We were able to pretty quickly focus one of these guys down. So yeah, that's what happens here, and I really hope this guide had some advice that will help you guys time more shrines in the future. I hope you learned something. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps other people like you find the video more easily, and is a really great way of supporting the channel and including or encouraging more creation of videos like this. And another way you can help support me if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful is to go to twitch.tv/HeidiLamar and give me a follow there, or stop by the channel. You can ask more questions in the channel or in the comments below, And yeah, that's all I have. Good luck out there. And if you're looking for a bursting specific guide, once again, it is linked in the description below. I give you more tips on how to heal bursting specifically, since it's going to be bursting next week at the time of this video's creation. Well, good luck out there. Good luck with your key running, and have a good night.